this mic or the walk one, and here's your clicker.
Great.
Okay, good job. Nice shirt.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, James. Hello, everyone. I'm Joshua Martyn from actually here in Temecula right now, so I drove down here to visit you guys. I started my company, Virtual Native, about 20 years ago. Hard to believe it's been that long. But fun fact about me is I started skydiving a couple years ago, and I had something, yesterday I was at the drop zone, and it kind of dawned on me the parallels between skydiving and AI. There's this big unknown that's happening right now. And so there I am, in the drop zone, I'm putting up my gear, loading up everything, checking everything twice, making sure everything's set, and climbing into the airplane with all the other skydivers. And one of my favorite things about skydiving is just the ride up. So you get in, you click in, you wear your seatbelt until about 1,000 feet, and then you unclick it, and you get time to think about stuff. You get time to sit in with your thoughts. You get to look out in the window. You get to see the horizon. You get to see the ocean kind of start showing up, and it's just this feeling of unknown. There's like a mix of anxiety and excitement. And for me, that is what AI is. And we all know what's going to happen next in the scenario of being in an airplane. They're going to open the door at 13,000 feet, and everybody's going to start peeling out. And your turn's coming. And no matter how many times you jump, there's always that little bit of a tinge of excitement and anxiety. It's a really profound experience. I highly recommend it, especially if you're afraid of heights. But being at the door, you climb up to the door, you hold on to the handlebar or the bar above, and you look down, you make sure it's clear, you make sure you're over the drop zone, and you are where you need to jump. And you wait about 7 to 8 seconds before it's your turn. And so AI is very exciting, but it also is, there's a little nerve to it. So a little bit more about me and my background. I started my company, it was just me, I was a developer. I did backend development, database design, and I kind of grew a little bit further. I started hiring contractors to help me with my company. I mean, at that time, I was kind of competing for dollars with the print industry. That's how old that my company is, and everything was coded from scratch for the most part. We didn't have the frameworks that we have now. We didn't have the tool sets that we have now. So it was very, very, very labor intensive in many ways. In many cases, it didn't work depending on the browser. But I grew my company with a designer, one of my best choices I made her my partner. She was a contractor, and I kind of started outgrowing my demand. The demand was there. So I started to outsource to, actually I jumped ahead of there, but I started to outsource to India and to Ukraine, to developers in Vietnam, Canada, all over the world, wherever I could, the Philippines even. And I grew my team one developer at a time. Usually what I would do is I would contact an outsourcing company, and they might have 300 employees. They would assign me a manager, and then that manager would have however many programmers underneath them. And I would always ask, I want to work with your best programmer. And inevitably what would happen is that programmer would eventually, I would develop a relationship with that programmer, but that programmer would eventually leave the company, and guess what? They would contact me. So what would I do? I would hire them immediately. And I said, hey, I want you full-time. I know your skills. I know what you're capable of. I now want you to find other developers that you trust in the region, and I want you to be the manager. And then they could work for you. And so I started building these little teams. And in many ways, it's indicative, it's very similar to AI, because now they're my agents. And they're out there building stuff for me so I can grow my company and I can do less. So one of the visions I had when I first started was that I would have independence. That means I could do whatever I want, go skydiving, go mountain biking. I had this fantasy that I could be at the mountain, updating the server or restarting the server or communicating with clients while I'm skiing or on the ski lift. That wasn't quite there at the time, but that was my vision. That's why I got into it. It's like, there's independence in this. And so I I of course have always been really interested in what's going to happen next. And AI has been in the background, since 2014, 2015 or so. And I did work on some AI systems. So one of them was IQU Health. And it was a proprietary system that we connected to via an API. And, it basically what it does is like you fill out this huge questionnaire about yourself, your history, your health, your genetics. It takes all this data in and it feeds it into this API, and then it kicks back, recommendations for you, lifestyle, micronutrients, recipes that are good for you. And they always claimed it, the vendor always claimed it as an AI. And I was like, no, this is a glorified database, in my personal opinion. Like maybe there's an algorithm, but I just didn't see the intelligence. And so I waited a few years later, and I was an early adopter of Copy AI, which is a content creator or editor, and Jasper AI. And they basically just like clumped text together. And I was like, all right, cute, but still not there. And I never really utilized these systems. I mean, even IQU Health, they just had struggle after struggle to get it off the ground. I'm still actually working on it and removing that system, but that's a different story. So the moment I knew something was different, like many of you, was when ChatGPT came out and you got to experience and talk to this system. That was cool. That's when my attention to the power of AI really started to like grab my attention. It's like, now I see this. It was very similar. It kind of reminded me of when I was a kid and I had my first Atari. Actually, before then it was in television. Before then it was even worse. It was text-based video games. But I envisioned when I was playing Atari that one of these days we could play a three-dimensional game and it's lifelike. That's what I wanted to see. So that was me looking forward into the future. That's what ChatGPT was. It's like, now the system is communicating back and it sounds intelligent. Even though it's hallucinating half of everything it's saying, it was like, all right, well, that's cool. But it's doing something. I'm feeling some intelligence behind this. But I was very hesitant. I was hesitant of like how this can be applied. And for me, like how is I going to bring this into my workflow? Because I got my company to a place where it was just working. Everything was working. Like I didn't actually have to work very much. I just had the machine working. The clients were taken care of. The project managers were doing what they were doing. I could scale up or down with any of the teams that I have in India or Vietnam. I could remove teams, replace them with others. Things just worked. So I didn't actually have to do a lot, which was great for me because then I could go mess around and jump out of airplanes or do whatever else I want to do. But one of the things that I started to notice, especially this last year, is that now it's becoming more useful. Because now, there's like the rudimentary programming that you would be able to do last year, but there's so many aspects of it that are super valuable. And that's primarily, I would say at the very, very top of the list for everyone is just to learn. Pick a system and use it for education, whatever you are interested in. So for me, even though I transitioned from being a programmer into being project management and just sales and business guy for the last 10 years. So first 10 years was programming and doing all that, and then I passed it all on. But then it's like, I'm kind of interested in programming again. So I started to relearn coding and just learn new languages like Python and just kind of expand some of like my skill sets, which I thought was great. It's like, now I can see this. So I can play with it, I can interact with it, and it'll write some code and the code will actually do something that's actually useful. And for me, it really started to shift from my traditional way of running my business of like, all right, client has issue, I document it, I put it through the project management system, I assign it to the developer, they spit it back. Usually it's pretty fast because if it's a bug, I could get it submitted today and then the bug is solved by tomorrow. That's all great and stuff. But what I'm finding now though is I can actually, in many cases, I could just skip the whole project management portion and then I could solve it myself just as fast as it takes me to document it. This is good for me because now it requires less labor. which is more money and everything moves faster. We want efficiency. That's ultimately the attractive aspect of AI. It just makes things more efficient. And of course, there's the versatility of all the things that we can do with AI. Everybody knows content generation, code development, image creation, video, but there's a lot of other things that we could explore. So one of the things that I kind of discovered, of course, SEO, is I love spreadsheets. I don't know who here loves spreadsheets. Okay, spreadsheets are the bomb. So with a spreadsheet, you could do so much. I could get around a spreadsheet pretty good, but I was never really writing scripts to do more stuff. I was just using the functions, the built-in functions and so forth. But with Google Sheets, you could write scripts and they're full functioning applications that could do just about anything you could think of. Very, very powerful. And so it's all right, well, I have projects. I have some, stuff that I've been putting onto the side. I have a couple projects where, we have thousands and thousands of products and they have spelling issues, or they have they're missing meta title or meta descriptions. They're missing something. Whatever it might be, the description itself is just not well written. It's not optimized for SEO. And so I was all right, well, I can now connect my spreadsheet through whatever API out there. So my favorite is Claude, but whether it's OpenAI or Gemini, connect it to one of those systems. And now I could iterate through the entire spreadsheet, update everything, and then re-import the data. That would take hundreds of hours for me to have a person do. But now I could do it in, relatively an hour or two. So I could have Claude write the script, I could connect to the database, or connect to the API, and then I could iterate through my spreadsheet. I could do mass updates. I liked that. Obviously, I could write a program and do it, but now I'm just doing it in a spreadsheet. This is a rapid update of stuff. Another use case would be looping through a bunch of prompts and creating thousands of images quickly and easily, and dumping all those images right into a Google Drive. That to me is interesting. And so the question is all right, where are websites going to go? Where's the future of a website? Is there even a future for websites? Actually, right now, I think it's very exciting to have a website, either create one or to update your own website and take it to the next level, because there's a lot of things that you could do with your website. I mean, right now, AI is capable of creating your business plan, is creating your brand. They can create your entire navigational structure. For example, if I wanted to build an AI exclusive website, I can, using a series of automations and workflows, whatever agents that you want to use, I could say, all right, I want this business, I want this design style, and I could just set it loose and go ahead and create. And then one of the agents will say, create a navigational silo, which is a full hierarchical structure of your website. Full navigational structure with all the depth. And then it's basically a map of all of the content. And then you have another agent doing the research, writing the copy for each of those pages. And you have another agent that is then creating a blog strategy and a social media strategy on top of that. And all of a sudden, you have an entire website from concept to completion, and then continued automation and publication without doing much. And it really kind of brought to the beginning of my career, which is to find talent to do tasks for me. I like to build businesses. I like to build houses. Obviously I want to deliver for my clients, but I'm just a creator. I like to create. All of a sudden, I have the same tool sets that I had first taste when I first was able to communicate and develop these relationships with these outsourced talent. Now I have all this talent at my fingertips, and I can create whatever I want. Now, and we're just barely touching the surface on what's coming from the sake of creativity. But there was something while I was coding that I noticed is all right, so I have lead developers that focus on whatever the specific thing is. But there's a new term that hit me this last week that kind of really resonated with me, and it's called vibe coding, which is essentially you're vibing the code from the standpoint of like, I'm going to use natural language to say, hey, I would like to build ... And then it starts to code and builds the thing, right? And I mean, it's right now, it's not going to build you a full stack application that's ready for production, but it could certainly do a prototype application. But as we start relying more and more on AI, we're going to be telling it what to do. We're going to be skipping the details, but we're not going to fully understand what it's doing. And that part is a little bit curious to me. I mean, I don't really understand everything that my lead programmers and my programmers are doing. I'm not reviewing all the code, but with AI, it's a little bit different because now I'm vibing that it is doing what I expect it to do. It's very similar to the outsourcing. Obviously, like, that's good for me because I could have less team, I can move faster. My projects can transition a little bit quicker from one phase to another. But there's some hesitancy to it from my perspective. The thing about the vibe that also kind of hit me is that when we're writing copy, I'm not a copywriter. I don't want to read a bunch of stuff. I'm just kind of like trusting that it's writing something of value. And it kind of hit me that the importance of having the human element help us along the way and keeping it human and having that human touch. Yeah, I could write a script that is pumping out 1,000 blogs a day, easily, just flooding the market with very specific keywords and topics that are going to benefit whatever traffic that I want. So whatever that I'm trying to draw attention to. But I don't think that does any good service. I think that's going to end up hurting us in the future because it's like, oh yeah, I could do that, but it doesn't mean I should. It doesn't make my content valuable, or is it going to get picked up by search engines, or it's going to get picked up by AI search. So like right now, we're just like kind of getting the gist of like what it's actually doing. So my focus is like bringing it back a little bit. Just because I can doesn't mean I should. Bring the human element into it because like Jenny said, we buy from humans. Humans are attracted to humans. That's where the sales closes. Yeah, we can use it for call centers and stuff like that, but the human element is very, very valuable. And I wouldn't want to deplete that or remove that at all from any of our development. But very, very exciting, all this stuff. So I'm going to move through a little bit quicker because I'm running out of time. For example, like there's tells. I mean, when you're looking at content, if it's AI created or it's created by human, almost instinctually. Like when you're reading it, it's going to start with discover or embrace, or it's going to have like it's so easy. Like just like the average brain can figure it out. And just intuitively we know. So it's very, very important. These are some of my favorite tools. If you want to take a screen of anything, these tools right here are the ones that I use. I highly recommend everybody. There's a lot of them out there. They're endless in all forms. A real fun one is the companion one, Sesame. That one's an interesting one because you could talk to it and it sounds like a real human. Closing thoughts. Right now we're all on the plane with our parachutes. The question is, do you know how your gear works? Do you trust your gear? Do you trust your training? Do you have the skills that when it's time for all of us to get to the edge and to get to the door, when you jump out, do you feel like you can fly? And do you feel like you can maintain an understanding of what your altitude is, when you need to pull your parachute, and how you're going to fly your canopy to the ground? So I encourage everybody to learn, develop the skills that are required to navigate this future that is very, very unknown, but also very exciting. So.
Good job.
Thank you.